Hey, welcome to the Push-Pull Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm Marcello.
And I'm Sherry, and each week we'll provide you with sales and marketing strategies that you can implement immediately into your own business. Today we're going to be talking about using stories to sell. So like tall tales? Lies?
No. No, you're going to be an honest and an ethical salesperson. You're going to use your powers for good and not for evil. So when it comes to using stories for selling, first off, if you think, let me ask you this, Sherry. I'm gonna reframe this. When you're not working and raising our kids and podcasting, what is your favorite thing to do?
Watch TV.
Okay, and what kind of shows are your favorite shows?
Usually like lighthearted things, like comedies.
Okay, comedies.
Or the exact opposite.
Do you watch stand-up comedians and stuff like that, or
sometimes, yeah.
Okay, but when you say comedies and the opposite, so you're talking like dramas,
like dark stuff, like Law and Order and Flashpoint and Criminal Minds.
Okay, and pretty much all those shows, they're just kind of telling a story. It's a visual. It's a visual and an auditory too, but basically what they're doing is they're telling stories, and I don't know why. I'm sure you were the psychology major. There's just something about stories that really encapsulates people.
I think it gives you the chance to dive into the story and kind of forget about your own life for a little bit. I feel like I'm so busy day in and day out, going from the next thing or from one thing to the next, and always being pulled in different directions, and being able to get drawn into a story of a TV show or a movie is kind of a nice little break.
Yeah, exactly. And in regards to storytelling, you can use this in your sales presentation to get someone's attention. So, again, if you took any sort of public speaking class or something like that, they say a good way to kind of open up is maybe to do like a mini drama or like paint a word picture or something like that. So you can just do that. You can do that right away, or even just saying, "All right, now I'm gonna tell you a story now. Now, once upon a time," and you could be amazed how like people like if you're like in a group of people, like everyone, if you start the presentation, people are talking, you say, "All right, I'm gonna tell everyone a story real quick." Everyone's gonna get real quiet, and I don't know why. They're just people love story, kids love story. Story time is like was like my favorite time as a kid. That and Geo Gym, which I don't think you had that, but.
Well, and I think if you say I'm going to start with a story, people feel like they need to pay attention from the beginning. It's not like you're just starting with a presentation and giving a bunch of information that you're probably going to repeat later. If you're saying, I'm going to tell you a story, I think, okay, let's see where this goes. Let's see where it starts. Mm-hmm. Let me see what you have to say.
And there's multiple facets where you can use it. So a lot of businesses where they'll use a story and they'll limit it to it, but it's still a good technique is to tell the company's story and how they were started, but maybe to do so in a more interesting way. So all right, I'm going to tell you the story of ABC Company and how we started. Actually, what had happened is the founder of my company, he worked for a competitor of ours, and he worked his way up, and somewhere along the lines, he was just running into more and more issues where it was just a common sense thing is, hey, why can't I do this to help the customer? And, it just was corporate policy to not do that. And this is, well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, we have an easy, quick solution for the customer, and we're giving the whole rigmarole. And he asked finally, he went up to the upper manager, like, how can we have this policy, blah, blah. Well, at this point, we have 95% market share, so there's not really any reason for us to sacrifice our margin or make any sort of concessions. So knowing that and how the customer was treated, he said, what, this isn't any way to do business. And he left and he started his own business where he could do things in a common sense way. So that's really how we started as a company, because we knew there wasn't a lot out there. So that's actually what we're doing today. So we're helping out customers, just common sense things. When there is an issue and we can resolve it quickly, we'll do that. And again, I'm just throwing an example. That sounds a lot better than just saying, I will do what my competitors won't do.
Right.
Now, one thing, and then again, I'm going to tell you another story. We'll just keep telling stories the whole way through. When I first got into selling, when I first got into sales, I was selling for a home improvement company, and one thing I had noticed is whenever I would drive around, all I would see would be windows, and I would be obsessed with it. I would go through and I would just pass by house. Okay, well those ones are no good. That one's a double pane. If I'd see a commercial, you just become hyper aware of things.
Or when we were looking at houses to try to buy our first house, anything, he would walk through a house and didn't care about anything besides the windows.
Yeah, and the point of that story is that whatever you're doing in sales, you have to be really enthralled in your product and enthralled in the company, and just really, really be dedicated. But what you can do is you can even say that too to your customers. So if you're like that and you say, look, I started off here 2 years ago, but I tell you, I'm and for me, I work in logistics now, so I'm obsessed with transportation. If I'm driving through, and Sherry will tell you, if I'm driving through, I'm on vacation, and maybe we take a different route, and I see a manufacturer I might be able to help out, I'll write down the name, in the car ride.
Yeah.
But ways you can use stories. You can use it to kind of explain something. You can use it to say how you got into the business, maybe.
And it's an easier way to brag about yourself and kind of boost up yourself in the company and the product if you're giving a more elaborate story that doesn't sound quite so salesy, I guess.
Exactly. Now, after this podcast, what you're going to notice is you're going to see how people are using stories and how it's working in action. So a classic example, election year, presidential election is going to be coming up soon. But when you had the first or the most recent election, you had Romney and Obama, right? Mm-hmm. Each of them, and they used the exact same technique. It was so humorous. So President Barack Obama would say, I was in Iowa, and I bumped into a small businessman, and let me tell you this story. He was telling me how he's working his butt off to, at $40,000 a year to raise his family, and how he's just been shortchanged, and he didn't have any faith in the middle class, and he said he supported me, and he's having confidence now. I bumped into him again at a rally, and he's doing a lot better. And then, you bump into Mitt Romney. He'll say the exact same story too. He's like, I bumped into a gentleman in Florida, and he's telling me that all these new taxes and regulations are killing his business. He's so concerned about that. He's not going to be able to do it. He's probably going to have to let people go. So, and they're both giving their argument, but they're doing it through a story. Mm-hmm. And you remember that better. Or who was the story of Joe the plumber or something like that?
Something like that. I don't remember.
I'm forgetting that story. But for some reason, stories are normally they're more memorable. But just if you listen to debates and stuff like that, the politicians, they already know the technique, so they're not going to say this policy is no good. It's going to take away jobs. Blah blah blah. They will do that at points, but when they're really trying to sell it and they're at the debate, they're going to say a story. They're going to give names, and they're going to give places. And they say, I met Jane.
Make it more personal and make themselves more personable.
Yeah. I mean, the best way to sell is not to be super duper stiff and rigid. You want to be professional, but you want to be very, very friendly and personable. I think personable is a good way to put it. So that would be just noticing some examples of people using stories. Again, you can use a story to sell the company, use a story to sell yourself and say, hey, I worked for 3 or 4 companies that actually were in the same industry, and I was just getting fed up and kept running into the same problems over and over again. I just decided, that's it, I'm just going to do this myself. So that's actually how I got started doing, in working in this business. I'm just giving an example. Mm-hmm. So in terms of stories of selling a product, you can do the same thing. Again, I'm going to backtrack to selling windows. I remember, I believe it's Billy Joel, who's and it's a really, really sad story. His son fell out a window, I believe, and obviously passed away. And our windows that we sold had those like ventilation locks where you can open the window, but you can't open it the whole way, so just enough for ventilation.
Right.
So when I would sell the window, I would tell that story. I'd be like, there's a famous musician, and I believe it was Billy Joel. And, I'll tell you what, it might be something really small, like to have like these locks. They probably cost like $1.50 to make. But just having something small like that makes a huge difference. And and for that reason, that's exactly why we do it. So you're going to remember those ventilation locks. Oh yeah. Billy, it's startling too. Stories, if you can give startling facts or something like that. I mean, it can't just be like
true facts. I mean, I think that's important too, to make sure that you're giving something that's actually accurate, that actually happened. That
now I'll have to Google it. I know it is a musician. I'm pretty sure it's Billy Joel.
You said you couldn't
remember
this time.
It's not Elton John.
It's one thing to just make up this fantastical story, and in other situations too. Like you're saying, come up, even if it means you need to go research something that you think could fit into your presentation, or something interesting about your product, or, get to know the history of your company a little bit better, inflect upon your own reasonings for being there and how you've grown with the company. Take the time to create those stories and establish that.
Yeah, now one thing too is you do more of the branding and the marketing. That's basically storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, same kind of thing. When you're writing content for websites or brochures or, pretty much any other marketing material, it's the same thing. You can't just say, we do X, Y, and Z, and here's the specs on our product. You have to attract that audience. You have to understand what they're looking for. You have to convey where you're coming from. You have to be personable. Maybe give them some interesting information that they hadn't known before. So yeah, it's definitely the same kind of thing. I mean, in a lot of situations, you want to create an emotion before you ask for the action.
And then I'm glad you said emotion too. We can do another podcast just on that. When people, when they actually make decisions, they use the emotional part of the brain first, and then they will justify it later with logic and with reasoning. People do not normally make decisions logically. Sadly, people normally will make an emotional decision first, and then they'll justify it with reasonings. And you really need to have both.
Right.
And we can cover another thing
when
too.
When you say emotion, it's kind of that like subconscious gut feeling.
Exactly. It's kind of the why. It's so hard for people to describe, and you might have,
That's why it's so important for people to like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if someone, I've never ran into a situation, and unless I was the only option for the person, where someone say, you know what,
I really don't like you.
I know you. I trust you. I just really don't like you. You never run into that.
But real quick, before we continue on with this particular podcast, we wanted to check in and ask you guys to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can rate us on iTunes. You can also listen to our podcast on our website if that's easier for you guys. It's pushpullsales.com. Our Twitter is at pushpullsales. If you have any feedback, suggestions for future topics, or any questions, you can also email us at pushpullsales@gmail.com. We'd love to hear some of the stories that you guys share with customers and hear from different industries and see how you guys are using this strategy, or how you plan to use it in the future. And we also provide show notes on our website, which is pushpullsales.com. One of my other questions for you, Marcello,
sure,
is there ever, do you ever ask, like if you're on a sales call, do you ever ask that potential customer to share a story of their own?
Oh yeah, and I'm glad I'm glad you cover that, and that really is a combination of the Socratic method, and that's one of the reasons why I like sales so much. I was a political science and philosophy major, and the whole Socratic method is you're just asking questions to kind of get to the final conclusion. So if you just lay reason on, that might work, but if you ask questions and kind of walk them through a story, okay, can you tell me about a time when you tried something and it didn't work? And it's like, well, yeah, I've tried something and it didn't work. Great. All right. So how much are we talking here? Oh, $100. Okay. So how much, the last thing you tried didn't work, how much did you spend? Oh, I spent like $30,000. Okay, so I'm talking about spending $100,000, and if it works, it's going to put $1,000 back in your pocket. If it doesn't, you're going to be down $100. So I mean, again, you told me before you've done that, so you're going to use stories and as a way also to kind of overcome. You can have them tell you their story, and you want to learn that and find out exactly what happened, and that. If they can tell you a story and they're going into it, you're doing very well. If the person might say at first, I'm not interested, blah, 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 but then you hear a story about how they work with someone in your industry and they just want to do it themselves and blah, 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 you definitely have a way to overcome that. And that kind of segues into another great way to use it, and this is where a lot of salespeople will use stories, is to overcome objections, and it's called a reframe. So, for example, we talked about objections before. Let's go ahead and talk about preference. So, in my industry, you'll actually run into people who they don't want to outsource their logistics or outsource stuff to other companies. And I say, well, we just do that in-house. So if you're an accounting firm, say, oh, no, we do all our accounting in-house. Or if you're a temp or a staffing agency, pretty much the same thing. Oh, well, we... Or marketing or anything like that. Yeah, we just prefer to do that in-house. So, for example, if I were to call up Sherry, I'll give a bad example first, and I'll give the right way to do it. And let's go ahead with. I'll go ahead, and I'm calling from a staffing company.
Okay.
We'll go with that. Hey, this is Joe Jones calling. I was looking for Mary.
Yeah, this is her.
Hey, Mary. Again, I'm Joe Jones. I'm calling from Joe Jones Staffing Incorporated. And the reason for my call here is reaching out to a lot of people, or actually reaching out to a few people in your area. In particular, what my company does is my company helps find more technical positions that you might have had a hard time filling in the past. So if you're looking for someone with 7 and 9 years of experience, I have a great Rolodex of people, and I might be able to refer some people your way. I was just looking to set up a time just to find a little bit more about your operations and to see if maybe I can help you out.
Oh, you know what? We're not looking to outsource that at the moment.
Okay, and why is that?
We've been doing it in-house, and, we feel like hiring should be happening in-house. Our people should be the ones determining that, and, it's been going pretty well so far.
Yeah, and I can certainly understand. I can certainly understand that position. I can kind of tell you a similar story because I'm actually I pretty much had the same exact position that you did. I like to do everything myself. I like to do my own oil changes. I like to do any sort of repairs in my car because I had a bad experience one time. I went to a mechanic. I needed some work done. I think they needed to change a motor or something like that. They spilled oil on my car. I forgot to put the actual piece the whole way in, and then to make it worse, they never refilled the actual refrigerant. So I thought they fixed my air conditioner, and then I got to go down to AutoZone and spend $44. So after that, I did everything on my own. Every single thing I did on my own. But you know what I found out? The time it was taking me to get everything done and run to the store and get all the parts, and you know how it is. You get the one thing you think you need, and then you come back, and then you need something different. It was a lot easier just to go and find another mechanic to do that. And I found a great mechanic. Saves me a bunch of time and everything gets done. And I think a lot of the businesses I'm running into, it's fairly similar where they want to do everything in house and they think it's easier, but by working with a reputable company like mine, we're able to help free up that time and still get the same quality of work that you would get and the same quality of employees that you would bring in if you were bringing it on your own. So with that being said, how about I swing by next Wednesday?
Yeah, I'd be open to that.
Yeah. So rather than saying...
I thought you said you were going to do a bad example.
Oh, I did a good example.
You did a good... That was good, people.
All right, so we're going to do good first, and then we'll do bad. So the bad example would be...
well, go ahead and tell them what was good about it.
All right, so I gave a similar situation.
It's a little long.
It was a little long. I could shorten that, but again, we're just ad-libbing this here, so I've never sold staffing services before. But yeah, it's pretty much the same premise. So I gave a similar story. I said, hey, I'm a lot like you, because the overall objection there is, we just want to do it ourselves because we think it's best. So I gave an example where, I felt the exact same way. Or you can give a story and say, I ran into someone just down the road and he was in the exact same boat as you.
Right.
And after we took a look, turns out he's there 45 hours a week. He was spending 15 hours hiring people on top of doing operations, on top of doing this, on top of doing that. And then if that person doesn't work out, it would end up costing him 2.5 times the person's salary.
Right.
So what we do here is we get the right person up front. And the way we're able to do that, I can kind of explain better in person. And the best way for me is to meet you Wednesday. So that example, it might be a little bit shorter. So again, our previous podcast was on scripting. I might have rehearsed mentally,
right.
that actual story. Now, a bad example just would be just to beat you over the head with facts and figures. Okay. So if I said, it's a lot better to outsource that to other people, because it costs you 2.5 times as much as the person's salary, in man hours and stuff like that. So I really think we can help you out. How's next Wednesday look?
I don't think we're interested at this point.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not interested? I just told you it's going to cost you 2.5 times as much. What are you, stupid?
No, if you ever say that to a client.
Yeah, but sometimes on the phone, if you get frustrated in sales reps, that's pretty much what they're saying. It'd be like...
Yeah, right. And not in as blatant terms, but that's what comes across.
Yeah.
Is that you're an idiot, and I'm not going to do business with you if you don't value what I have, like my company, my intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be insulting.
Yeah. How about we do another objection? Because again, someone had asked about doing more role playing and stuff like that. So we'll just role play another objection. This time it's going to be a basic price objection. So
what do I have to say?
You're going to say...
it's too expensive?
You're going to say it's too expensive. I can get it from Home Depot for $30 less.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Ready?
Ready.
All right. Hey, I'm following up on the rate quote I had sent out to you. I know you said you were looking at us and a couple other vendors or a couple other suppliers for the washer dryer set for your basement, and I wanted to see if maybe we can set up a time to schedule delivery and see what you're looking at in terms of the next week here, because I have the product that's ready and it's available. I can get it delivered to you fairly quickly.
Yeah, I was looking at the quote and I can get it cheaper elsewhere.
Okay. So what you're telling me basically is it's just a matter of price. It's not a matter of anything else, correct?
Correct. I could get something comparable for a better price.
Comparable. Can you get now? Is it the same product, or are you looking at maybe a different model?
I'm open to different models.
Okay. And what type of other store were you looking at?
Home Depot.
It was Home Depot. Okay. Now, I'm kind of glad you said that. Actually, I ran into a situation the other day with a customer, and it was very similar to what you were saying. Actually, it was the exact same model. And sometimes things break and things go wrong. This customer told me he went to me even though I was $20 more, because if there ever was a problem, I would go and I would fix it. And you know what? I hate to say it, there was a problem. The inner drum of the dryer rusted, And the guy, he took a picture of the serial number, took a picture of the drum, and we took care of calling the service company. We took care of going out and getting everything, because that person had to do nothing. Now, if you would have bought that same dryer at Home Depot and you would have had a problem, if you didn't fill out that card and register that within the first 90 days, we already take care of that for you. You imagine being on hold with their customer service people to try to set up the appointment. I can tell you for a matter of $20, you're going to get a lot more working with a company like mine in those situations. So, I mean, if it's just a matter of $20, I'm going to tell you, it's going to cost you a lot less to go with my company, especially if you have any problems, because you're going to get the service, you're going to have everything moving forward if there ever is an issue. So how about we set up delivery for next week?
Sounds good to me.
All right. And I'm actually giving a real life example, because that
actually happened.
I did that. I had an issue with the dryer. I bought it, and then like later on in the day, I was like, oh, let me Google the model here, and then I Google it and I see it's like $20 cheaper at Home Depot. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But the company, they were great. I did exactly that, and I spoke with the owner of the company. It saved me a lot more than $20, because time is money here. I mean, Sherry's time is uber valuable. I mean, imagine just having her wait around for 3 different missed deliveries with the kids.
Yeah.
And you hate people in the house.
They had to be in the house, though.
I know, but
go in and fix it. But that's kind of what you have to do anyway.
And what happened if somebody did it wrong? If they didn't have like a good repair person, they were in here twice. You'd be like, oh yeah, like right now, Horizon, she's not happy about that. But just to kind of give a recap here, and we'll kind of wrap things up. You can use stories to get attention in the beginning. You can say something like, all right, I'm going to tell you a story, or even say once upon a time, and you'd be just amazed at how people will quiet down and they're just going to perk up. People love story time. Use stories to sell your company. So talk about how you started, but you have to make it compelling, and really give the actual reasons. Use stories to talk about testimonies and stuff like that, and just say, hey, I have a lot of customers in the area say, I ran into a business down the road here, and they make this, and they were in a very similar situation to you, and here's what happened, rather than just saying, I work with a lot of people in the area, and it's better to spend more money than you want to than less money than you should have. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cliche closing technique. And they'll say that too. Well, isn't it better, Sherry, to spend more money than you wanted to than less than you should?
I don't like that.
People will do that too.
I think if you go about, without saying that direct phrase, but
people have been taught to use that exact phrase. It's dated. It doesn't work, and people people have become aware of it. But if you can tell stories to overcome objections, you're going to be a lot more effective. So in terms of closing techniques and stuff like that, and all those verbal gymnastics, if he says this and blah blah blah, no, you can explain your idea or your thought better through a story. And I'm going to close on this, and it's helpful too because I'm across the street from a church. If you look at the Bible, Jesus, for the most part, whenever he would tell a story, he would sell it through parable. Mm-hmm. So, if you have the story of the workers and stuff like that, and he'd say, okay, well, if you work the fields for a day, I'm going to pay you 1 denarii, which I don't even know how much money that was back then. So then some more people came, and he said, all right, great, I'm going to pay you 1 denarii to work for the day. And then, the people that actually came at the end, he said, all right, well, I'm going to pay you, I need to work grapes. So some people worked 2 hours, and they were paid 1 denarii. Some people worked 10 hours, and they were paid 1 denarii. And the whole point of that story is that the last will be first and the first will be last. And it doesn't matter if you're saved, 2 hours before you're going to heaven. It is what it is. And who is it for you to be jealous about someone else's generosity? So again, that's just one story about a very complex thing about salvation, mm-hmm. and making it into heaven. And if you're not religious, that's fine. But again, in terms of throughout the Bible, Jesus was a tremendous salesperson. A lot of the great public figures are salespeople, but he did it, and he sold everyone on the ideas, and he did it through stories. So you can do that in your presentations. You can do that to overcome objections. You can do that to get people, as you mentioned, you ask them to tell you a story. Yeah, can you tell me about a story when something didn't work out? And then you can kind of find the underlying reasons. So that pretty much wraps everything up. I wanted to give a shout out to bensound.com. They provide our intro and outro music. And wanted to thank you for listening. Tune in next week where we'll tackle another topic. If you have any feedback on today's episode, you know all the info. So it's
pushpullsales.com. Twitter is at pushpullsales, and pushpullsales@gmail.com. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.